Hello everyone, I'm Ioana Negulescu and some of you know me as Berries and Spice. Welcome to the Afternoon Food Show, a space for culinary tales for serious gourmets, a curated digest of food news covering business, art, sustainability, culture and more. In short, I read all the food news so you don't have to, and then geek out about it all. Progress update, since last time I'm still working on a better tagline. In today's edition, I'll be discussing Deliveroo's IPO, robots that deliver food, hyperlocal high-end restaurants, comfort food, food waste, ketchup, tomatoes, grocery retail market trends, lava-cooked food, and more. Stick around and let me know your thoughts on the episode in a comment below. The British food delivery service Deliveroo has had its IPO on the London Stock Exchange just recently, and that, well, it didn't go well. The share price fell by 26% in the first day. But there's more to that. The risks that the gig economy is facing, particularly around workers' rights and the potential future regulations that may come in place, don't make it such an attractive investment. But speaking of food deliveries, remember last episode when I mentioned food delivered by drones? Well, I raise you an automated delivery that has already been kicked off in Houston, Texas by Domino's. We're not quite talking about drones or other flying devices yet, but Neuro's R2 robot is about to become the Wall-E version of fast food's wasteland. Only instead of picking up trash, it hands it to you for money. This edition's main story is from one of my favorite gourmet reads, Gastronomica. Around the World in 50 Restaurants, The Curious Irony of Hyperlocal Food by John Broadway. The author writes about how the world's 50 best restaurants ruins the hyperlocal focus of the restaurants on the list because, in fact, the customers who visit those restaurants are international travelers. He goes on to discuss the implications of such lists upon local cultures as well as our society. I'll go through his main points. There is a paradox to eating, I quote, monumentally expensive meals in developing countries. First of all, because locals cannot afford it. And why would you wish to revive traditional cooking practices if locals cannot actually experience it? These high-end, hyperlocal restaurants have high operational costs and very tight margins, so they need to charge premium prices and therefore, quote-unquote, top chefs can't afford to locally source their customers as they would other ingredients, and consumers' provenance isn't included in the critical commentary determining a restaurant's commitment to locality. Secondly, increasing the popularity of a certain cuisine increases the demand of exotic ingredients globally, and this in turn has an impact upon the local communities those ingredients originate in. Let me unpack this a little. In the article, the author mentions quinoa. When it became popular globally, quinoa-producing countries had to reduce their consumption of what is now one of their staple crops, because the demand increased globally, and with that, the prices increased. In Bolivia, one of the two largest quinoa-producing nations, 80% of the rural population still lives below the poverty line. The globalization of this local food has Bolivians turning to rice and pasta as the increased market price of quinoa obliges them to export their production, the article reads. Some time ago, I watched a short documentary on YouTube that was addressing food sovereignty and the case of beans in Costa Rica, one of their staple ingredients. Well, it turns out that for Costa Ricans, it is often cheaper to buy Chinese imported beans rather than consume what the country produces. But this opens up a whole other topic, and I promise we'll be discussing more of this at some point in a future episode. Back to the article. The author criticizes lists such as World's 50 Best for being, I quote, an echo chamber where the rich and privileged congratulate themselves for their sophisticated taste and laudable goals, even as their engagement with the cuisine contradicts its spirit. The author explains that great art should be accessible and concludes that the global elite have hijacked the restaurant world's best and brightest to serve their own ends. Now, no one has said that the food system is a simple one. This article brought things into a new perspective, at least for me. The answer isn't simple either. On the one hand, these chefs and restaurants can afford to pay fair prices to farmers and local producers because they can charge a premium price to this global 1%. Of course, one or two restaurants cannot change a whole local system, or a global one for that matter. But, as the article states too, these chefs, who, by the way, are very aware of the issues within the food system, they set the stage for better practices in the whole industry. On the other hand, this is also a bit of a chicken and egg issue, where those rich and privileged set the tone for the industry to continue developing in such an unequal manner, and more restaurants aspire to the list standards in order to receive the acclaim. And is the author right when he says that most great art is accessible? Sure, you can visit a museum for very little, but to put a Picasso in your own home, you'd most likely be part of that global 1%. Then there's a question around intent. Should consuming local ingredients and working on keeping traditions alive clash with bringing tourists into the country? And to me, reducing hyperlocality to sustainability only doesn't cover the whole issue. Restaurants like Noma in Copenhagen or Central in Lima have increased people's interest in traveling to those places, even for those who cannot afford to spend a few hundreds of euros on a meal at these restaurants. Are we at a point in our focus on sustainability where we start discouraging traveling altogether? What are your thoughts, and how can we build a system where chefs have the opportunity to work locally, but can also cater to a local audience? How can we reduce the disparity within this clearly broken food system? Share your thoughts in a comment below. Here's an even crazier thought. Has fine dining moved from being an aspiration to something that the pandemic has made obsolete? There are studies that show that comfort food is a stress reliever. Not sure whether that balances out with those newly gained kilos, but in any case, lab rats confined in small spaces were less depressed and less anxious while on a diet of palatable comfort food. See, Ratatouille knew it all along. Even the most extravagant of food critics will get fuzzy feelings at those simple dishes. Who needs caviar? Sprinkle some MSG onto my life. Give me that grilled cheese and kimchi sandwich, or that mac and cheese. Okay, I need to stop talking about cheese. I know my dealers are happy when I do, but my addictions will ruin me eventually. In fact, did you know that casein, a protein found in dairy, activates the same receptors as heroin and other narcotics? Seriously, cheese addiction is actually a thing. Back to comfort food. What's there to like about slurping some delicious ramen noodles as you sit on your cozy sofa snuggled under your warm fleece blanket watching My Neighbor Totoro or something? It sucks, right? A survey by McKinsey and Eurocommerce identified the trends that will have an impact upon the grocery retail market. Online shopping is becoming crucial, and I gotta say, since my online supermarket delivers my beer straight to my door and collects my recycling, I feel more privileged than Winnie the Pooh when his barrels of honey were full. No government realized that the best way to get people to comply with lockdown rules is to get them fat and unable to get out of their door. On top of online services, value is more important than ever. And here we're talking about downtrading, meaning switching from expensive brands to cheaper alternatives. Lifestyle is an important factor too, with more consumers looking for sustainable, healthy, and convenient products. In the world of academia, a recent paper published in the journal Foods researched how on-campus meal options correlate with food waste. I know that the study results will not come as a surprise, but the reason for academic research is to turn assumptions into statistically significant data and the I thinks into here are the facts. So, it turns out that the more satisfied diners were with their meal, the less they wasted. The same happened when diners visited dining commons more often. And finally, waste increased as portion sizes got larger. In general, I suggest stopping hoarding food onto our plates. As a rule of thumb, if you have too much, someone has too little. Remember last year's toilet paper crisis? Now, forget about producing oxygen on Mars. What's life without ketchup? Many Americans have been deprived of this vital condiment in a countrywide ketchup shortage. Doctors are worried as everyday diets have just lost 1 of the 5 a day, and the 99% stopped arguing over whether tomatoes are or are not fruits. Oh God, no! All we'll be left with is mustard and mayo. I went through COVID and a national coin shortage, but goddammit, enough is enough. We need a federal mandate for massive ketchup manufacturing stat. says a Redditor. But before we delve into this crisis, let's look at some numbers. 300,000 tons of ketchup were sold to food service last year. Retail ketchup sales in the US reached $1 billion in 2020, and that is 15% higher than in 2019. Due to the high demand, ketchup packets prices grew by 13% since January 2020, and their market share has exploded. Yearly, 650 million Heinz ketchup bottles are sold worldwide. Okay, so what exactly happened? In fact, the issue isn't a general ketchup shortage. It's a shortage of individual packets that restaurants had to replace sharing bottles with for hygiene reasons and because with the pandemic more people ordered food at home. Heinz has been working on opening 2 new plants, which will increase production by 25%. That is 12 billion packets more a year, which, by the way, they invented too. The packets. But, like in every crisis, there are winners too. Those who packed ketchup in their emergency supply kit. In hindsight, a good decision. It's time to make some money. In fact, that has already been happening. From online bids for ketchup packets to one packet listed for $100 as a joke on eBay, a new market was created, and it's thriving. Meanwhile, Germany has created ketchup slices, because why not? I guess to relieve everyone from the painful mess of squirting ketchup from the bottle. I guess? Speaking of tomatoes, I just recently watched a very interesting documentary from Deutsche Welle about tomato seeds. In short, most tomatoes found in supermarkets are hybrids, obtained by cross-pollinating 2 plants with specific genetic features. HF1 or F1 on your tomato pack means first-generation hybrid. Producers of hybrid varieties do it so that they can obtain a higher yield, larger fruits, and a longer shelf life, apart from other things like horizontal vines for better packaging, for example. It takes 400 cross-pollinations to obtain one winning hybrid variety, and hybrid seeds can only be used once, since the second time, the genetic mix may be totally different. Tomatoes that have a longer life are less aromatic and have worse nutritional qualities because they carry genes that inhibit them from ripening. The nutrient composition of normal tomatoes and hybrid varieties is huge. A nutritional test between a hybrid and a natural tomato showed that hybrid varieties have about 63% less calcium, 29% less magnesium, 72% less vitamin C, 58% less lycopene, and 56% less polyphenols. Because F1 tomatoes, hybrids, can only be used once, farmers need to buy new seeds every year, and these are the costs of tomato seeds. 400,000 euros for a kilo of hybrid seeds, and 60,000 euros for a kilo of normal tomatoes, non-hybrid. But the seeds are produced in low-wage countries where labor is cheap, quite often through child labor. Why? Not only because of cost reasons, but because children are more agile and efficient at repetitive tasks. 2 children can do the work of 3 adults in the same amount of time. Most seed production fields workers are women, mostly because they cost less than men, only about 60%. They spend 8 hours bent over tomato plants to cross-pollinate them. The Indian seed farmers featured in the documentary are paid 102 euros for 1 kilo of seeds. They state that if they were paid 26 euros more per kilo, they could pay women higher wages and still make a profit. All of this, of course, as the companies that sell seeds charge 60,000 euros a kilo or more. This means that the farmers in India are paid less than 0.17% of the actual selling price of a kilo of tomato seeds. While TikTok users continue their booty-enhancing legging challenge, scientists have discovered how to use food waste as jet fuel in order to reduce emissions. Anyway, jet fuel is produced from wet waste, meaning food scraps, animal manure, or wastewater sludge, which are all energy rich. Not only that, but the research paper even covers the food waste turning into viable fuel that can meet aviation standards. Moving on, Elon Musk's brother, Kimball Musk, has been working on a gardening project, and no, it's not to grow weed for Elon. In fact, Kimball is trying to reduce food poverty by encouraging Americans to have a go at gardening, whether that happens in the backyard, on a balcony, or on the windowsill. The Million Gardens movement aims to ensure that every household has access to fresh fruit and vegetables. You can either sign up and join the community, or donate $10 to give a beginner-friendly garden to someone who cannot afford one. The gardens come as garden bed kits, with a customized growing plan and online lessons on how to care for the plants. Currently, this is a US-only project, but someone please do this elsewhere too. Anyway, I believe it is time to interrupt this very serious program for the monthly Oscars of the Afternoon Food Show. This time with even more exciting categories than last time. Food art first. Every month I select an artwork that has food as its theme, featuring the beautiful photography of Alex Walbaum. Here is a brandless bottle skyline. Follow his colorful work on Instagram. Since tomatoes have been a leitmotif of this episode, today's song is I Found God in a Tomato by Psychedelic Porn Crumpets. Double gourmet name, double the points. Although I'm not quite sure I want to imagine what a psychedelic porn crumpet would look like or even taste like. For more food-related songs, check out my ever-growing Spotify playlist, Gastronom Music. I'll leave a link in the description box of the video. This month's ingredient, which no, don't worry, will not be a tomato despite popular belief, is, drumroll, gobo d'acacia. This incredibly floral raw milk sheep's cheese comes from Gerbido in northern Italy and is aged for 60 days in stone caves. But the most important thing about the cheese is that it is mixed with acacia honey, which gives it uniquely sweet and flowery notes. I grated some onto this portion of homemade tagliatelle with wild garlic and ricotta, but it is also so delicious by itself. Next up, this edition's special pairing is mushroom and citrus. Go crazy with it, add lemon juice, lemon zest, preserved lemons, or citrus in any shape or form to any mushroom. It's a pretty conservative pairing in my opinion, but definitely my favorite at the moment. In fact, I made this spread using king oyster mushrooms, a lot of lemon, a bit of kimchi, and some greens. With St. Moore goat's cheese on pizza, it was a definite winner a couple of times. And since we're on the topic of mushrooms, forget about pizza, sourdough, banana bread, and other pandemic-prevailing kitchen adventures. The latest trend, my friends, is growing mushrooms at home. Not the fun type of mushrooms, but at least you're covered on the munchy side. You can do it by buying a mushroom growing kit and start new culinary adventures. Recently, another unpronounceable volcano erupted in Iceland. Are you ready? Let me try my luck. It's called Mount Fagradalsfjall.
Just 2 days ago, there's a guy that tried to cook eggs and bacon on it, and lava ate the pan.
In short, don't meddle with a hangry volcano or it may just eat your food and your cooking gear. I hope you've enjoyed this episode, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe to my channel and follow Berries and Spice on Instagram. Until next time!